Hi, I'm Stephanie, and this is lesson 54 of the B2 course. So, this is a vocabulary lesson, and it's the second of our lessons where we're focusing on collocations. Now, if you remember, collocations means words that commonly go together. So, my name's Stephanie, this is level B2 or upper intermediate, and this is lesson number 54 of the course. So let's have a look at what we're going to focus on in this lesson. Okay, in lesson 54, we're going to look at two key verbs in the English language. The first one is come. So we will focus on expressions that use the verb come and phrasal verbs that use the verb come. The second verb is go. So we will look at expressions that use go and phrasal verbs with go. So essentially there are four parts to this lesson: expressions with come, phrasal verbs with come, expressions with go, and phrasal verbs with go. So lots of really useful vocabulary for you in this lesson, especially at this level where we're trying to sound more natural in our use of English. You'll be reading more challenging texts where people are likely to use more phrasal verbs, for example. Okay, well, let's start and let's begin with expressions that use come. Now, what I'm going to do is to show you 5 sentences that all use an expression with the verb come. What I want you to do is to see if you can understand what you think this expression means, because I've given you a context. So because you're seeing the expression in a context, hopefully it will give you a clue as to what the expression means. Well, let's have a look together. Okay, so sentence number 1. The cherry blossoms come into bloom in April. He found it difficult to come to terms with the death of his wife. I think the negotiations have come to a dead end. Things really came to a head when the firm was declared bankrupt. Some new evidence has come to light. So I've highlighted the expressions for you, but just pause the slide and think for a moment, how do you understand these expressions? Can you think of another way of explaining them? Okay, well, what I'm going to do the next stage is I'm going to give you 5 options. So I'm going to give you 5 possible meanings. And what you need to do is to look at the expression and to match with what you think the correct meaning is. So it might be a useful idea to refer back to the previous slide as well. Okay, so we have our expressions: come into bloom, come to terms with something, come to a dead end, come to a head, and come to light. And on the right we have our meanings: to reach a crisis point, to become known, to flower, to accept a situation, and to reach an impasse. So all I want you to do is to see if you can match the expression with what you think the meaning is. How did you do there? Well, hopefully you have the same answers as me because they're the correct ones. So let's check together. Come into bloom means to flower. Come to terms with something means to accept a situation. Come to a dead end means to reach an impasse. Come to a head, to reach a crisis point. And come to light means to become known. Really well done if you got all of those right. So the final stage is to practice these and see if you can correctly put the expression into the right sentence. Don't worry, I will keep the meanings at the top of the slide as a reminder for you. So at the top in green, you'll see we have the expression and the meaning. What I want you to do is to put the expression into the sentence. Number 1, the police explained that new information had come. Number 2, she found it hard to come the fact that she had lost her job. Number 3, things came when he asked for a divorce. Number 4, I love it when the garden comes. And number 5, I think the discussion has come. So pause the slide and see if you can correctly put in the 5 expressions. Okay, hopefully that was relatively easy. Let's check. So the correct answers, number 1, the police explained that new information had come to light. Number 2, she found it hard to come to terms with the fact that she had lost her job. Number 3, things came to a head when he asked for a divorce. Number 4, I love it when the garden comes into bloom. And number 5, I think the discussion has come to a dead end. Excellent work if you got all of those right. Okay, so let's move on and let's have a look at some phrasal verbs using come. So we're going to follow the same pattern. I'm going to show you 5 sentences that use phrasal verbs with come, and I want you to see if you can understand what the phrasal verbs mean. So the first one. He came down with a heavy cold at the weekend. At first I couldn't remember the answer, but then it came to me. The magazine comes out every 2 weeks. I'm broke. I don't know how I'll be able to come up with the rent this month. I know you've argued, but don't worry, I'm sure he'll come around. So pause the slide here, have a look at the sentences again and see if you can understand how this phrasal verb is used because you're given a context. And remember, I'm always saying how important it is to study vocabulary in context because then you can see how it's used. Okay, well, hopefully you have a bit of an idea as to what you think these phrasal verbs mean. Again, I'm going to give you 5 possible options, 5 possible meanings, and I want you to try to match the phrasal verb with the meaning. So our 5 phrasal verbs: come down with, come to, come out, come up with, and come round or around. It's the same. And your 5 possible meanings: to appear, to change one's mind, to become sick, to produce or supply, and to remember or recall. So again, pause the slide for a moment and see if you can match the phrasal verb with the meaning. Okay, time to check the answers. So, number 1, come down with means to become sick. Remember in our example, he came down with a heavy cold. Come to means remember or recall. Come out is appear. Come up with means produce or supply. And come round or come around means to change one's mind. So again, it's time for you to practice, but don't worry, I'll keep the phrasal verbs and the meaning at the top of the slide. So, number 1, I can't remember her name, but I'm sure it'll come. me later. Number 2, I'm sorry I can't make it tonight. I've come a stomach bug. Number 3, he finally came to my way of thinking. Number 4, I think I have come a solution to the problem. And number 5, the moon came last night. So pause the slide and see if you can correctly use the 5 phrasal verbs. Okay, well, let's check and let's see how you did. These are the answers. I can't remember her name, but I'm sure it'll come to me later. I'm sorry I can't make it tonight. I've come down with a stomach bug. Number 3, he finally came round to my way of thinking. Number 4, I think I have come up with a solution to the problem. And number 5, the moon came out last night. Excellent if you got those 5 correct. Well done. Okay, we've looked at come. Now we're going to look at go. And we will start with expressions with go. So let's have a look at 5 example sentences. Number 1, you need to go with the flow and try not to worry so much. Number 2, they went out of their way to make me welcome. So here we've got go in the past. Number 3, I think you've gone a bit overboard with the decorations. Number 4, meetings go on forever because the chair keeps going off on a tangent. And number 5, if they offer you the opportunity, you should go for it. So again, a good opportunity here to pause the slide, I think, reread the sentences, look at the expression in context and see if you can understand what these expressions mean. Okay, well, to help you along, I'm going to give you 5 possible meanings. So on the left, we have our expressions with go with the flow, go out of your way, go overboard, go off on a tangent, and go for it. And on the right are 5 meanings: to get sidetracked, to accept events without fighting them, to take an opportunity, to make a special effort, to go to extreme measures. So again, might be useful. Have a go at matching and then refer back to the previous slide to see if it makes sense. Okay, well, let's check together. So the correct answers are go with the flow means be relaxed, accept events without fighting them. Go out of your way means make a special effort. So in the example, they talked about people going out of their way to make you feel welcome, making a special effort. Go overboard means to go to extreme measures, and this can sometimes be used in a negative way. Go off on a tangent means to get sidetracked. So maybe you've been at a meeting where the conversation doesn't follow the agenda, but people start talking about different topics. They are going off on a tangent. They're not following the route that the meeting should take. And number 5, go for it means take an opportunity. Okay, well, let's practice. Again, we have 5 sentences and 5 expressions for you to put in. Number 1, my new colleagues went to get to know me. Number 2, I've decided that as I can't do anything about it, I should just go. Number 3, the town went. with security before the president's visit. Number 4, if you continue to go, the meeting will never end. And number 5, go and apply for the job. So pause the slide and see if you can put in the right expressions. Okay, time to check the answers. Number 1, my new colleagues went out of their way to get to know me. They made a special effort. Number 2, I've decided that as I can't do anything about it, I should just go with the flow. Let events happen, be relaxed. Number 3, the town went overboard with security before the president's visit. So took extreme measures. Number 4, if you continue to go off at a tangent, the meeting will never end. And number 5, go for it and apply for the job. So as you can see, go for it is often used in a very encouraging way. When you're trying to encourage, be enthusiastic about something, go for it. Okay, so this brings us to the final section of this lesson, which is phrasal verbs with go. So look at these example sentences using 5 phrasal verbs. Number 1, my alarm goes off at 6:30 every morning. Number 2, could you go over part 2 of your report? I think there are some errors. Number 3, the tie doesn't really go with the colour of the suit. Number 4, time goes by quickly when you're having fun. And number 5, I don't know what's going on at work, but something isn't right. So again, pause the slide, look at these sentences and see in the context if you can understand them. Okay, so here are 5 possible meanings. So our 5 phrasal verbs: go off, go over, go with, go by, and go on. 5 meanings: to happen, to pass, to ring, to match, and to review. So as before, see if you can correctly match the phrasal verb with the meaning. Let's check our answers. So the first one, to go off, means to ring. We talked about my alarm went off at 6:30. So really easy one to use this. You can use this for every day, more or less, when you're going to work. I'm sure you have an alarm and I'm sure it goes off. Go over, again, a very useful one, especially in a work context. Can you go over the report? I'd like to go over my presentation. Can we go over the figures? Number 3, go with means match, coordinate. The example was the tie doesn't go with the suit. It doesn't match. The colours aren't coordinating. Go by means to pass. Time goes by when you're having fun. Number 5, go on meaning happen. I don't know what's going on outside, but there's a lot of noise. I don't know what's going on with my neighbours. I haven't seen them for weeks. So, as always with phrasal verbs, there are alternatives that you can use, but as native speakers, we often prefer the phrasal verb alternative. So at this level, it's so important to be able to integrate some phrasal verbs into your vocabulary, not necessarily only for speaking, but also for listening, because if you're going to be talking or doing business or socializing with native English speakers, we will use phrasal verbs. So even if you don't use them yourself, it's important to understand the meaning. And that brings us very nicely to our last practice slide. Again, 5 sentences. See if you can complete with the correct phrasal verb. Number 1, the chair goes the other furniture perfectly. Number 2, the building was evacuated as the fire alarm had gone. Number 3, I was so busy, 2 hours went before I'd realised. Number 4, now let's go your answers to the test. And number 5, what's going in here? Pause the slide and write down your answers. And for the final time in this session, let's check together. Number 1, the chair goes with the other furniture perfectly. Number 2, the building was evacuated as the fire alarm had gone off. Number 3, I was so busy, 2 hours went by before I had realised. Number 4, now let's go over your answers to the test. And number 5, what's going on in here? Did you get those correct? Really, really well done if you did. So that's the end of lesson 54. Thank you very, very much for joining me. I hope you found it useful. Lesson 55 is going to be a review. We're looking back at 54, 52, 53 and 54, and we will be reviewing the key areas of these lessons. So really, really vital lesson to watch, because review and practice is so important when we're learning a language. So I hope to see you next time. But thank you very much for joining me. See you soon.